facing head-on the emotions beneath the surface as we bridge from an old world of confusion and lack to a beautiful new world of freedom, abundance, and love with straightforward truth and inspired hope is what you'll find on the Charla Anderson Show. Collector and connector of fascinating people. And everyone is fascinating. Here's your host, Charla Anderson.
Hello, hello, hello. Good, beautiful day, you beautiful souls. This is Charla Anderson, host of the Charla Anderson Show, collector and connector of fascinating people. And everyone is fascinating, especially you. We're on this extraordinary winwinwomen.com and winwinwomen.tv platform, and now streaming live on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and soon to be on all your favorite podcast channels with Podicize. Today is Wednesday, April 12th, 2023, and we are going to be meeting Miracle Michael and his beautiful wife, Gale, as we relive a most terrifying experience and the miracles and grace that followed. So honored to have you here with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us. If you will hang on till the end, till we finish our conversation, we're going to introduce Mary Margaret, an integral part, one of our best friends, an integral part of this whole experience. And we will have some live conversation. Stay on till the end and enjoy that. You're welcome to chat in the Zoom. If you'd like, I don't have it live. I'll read it later, but I'd love to hear your comments. And if you know me, you know that we do a little calming breathing exercise just before we start this show. And it's 22 seconds. We're going to breathe in calm for 7 seconds. We're going to hold for 4 seconds. We're going to breathe out gratitude for 11 seconds. So join me, if you will, in breathing this little breathing exercise. It will help ground us and center us. So let's do it. Breathe in 7 seconds of calm. Hold. Breathe out gratitude, release. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Do that anytime you're stressed or have something else going on. It's so calming and easy. It's like a mini meditation. I highly recommend it. So we're going to talk about a day in March 6 years ago that actually I witnessed personally firsthand. And I'm going to just tell a little bit about who Michael was to me and to our little group of friends when I lived downtown Fort Worth. And Mary Margaret was our best friend, and a bunch of us would get together, and her neighbor Michael was always part of it. And we all of us loved Michael because, I mean, I'm just talking about at this time, he was who we knew him to be, was such a leader and such a fun man. And he was so, military and big job at Lockheed, all kinds of stuff. And he was such a leader's leader. And he was the most eligible bachelor in the world. We all loved him. And one day we noticed that there was, someone had caught his attention, and it was one of our friends, and Gale caught his attention. And from that point on, we love him so much. And I forgot to say, one of my favorite things about him is, he's just so strong, and he collects antique sewing machines and sews. And so we were, he has all the bases covered. Still does, by the way. We love Michael. And I wanted to bring them on today to talk about the most miraculous healing that we've witnessed personally. I think most of us would be able to say that. And so his beautiful wife, Gale, in her own words, I'm going to just say what she said about Michael at that time. She says, Michael chose me. I didn't steal him away from anyone. I was just as surprised by his affection, as were all of our friends. He's the love of my life, and we love and adore each other. We love our friends, and we are so grateful for the love our friends have for us. Beautiful. And I'm going to introduce Gale, they're here with us today, a realtor for 25 years, and she continues practicing real estate in Fort Worth and other counties in Texas. And they love gardening and traveling and just are a fascinating couple. And I'm so grateful to introduce them to you today. So, Michael and Gale, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Michael.
I'm Gale. He has more to say, but
that's it.
Yeah. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about who you are in this world and what brought you to that moment in time in March 6 years ago that was so unexpected.
Maybe 7 years ago. March 5th, 2017. It was a Sunday afternoon, about 4:15. I basically threw up for about 8 or 10 times. So I calmed down for the next 2-3 minutes. I threw up again for the 8 or 10 times. Fell on the floor in my kitchen. So Gale is away for the real estate, but coming back right about now, comes back. Well, you take it from here.
Gale found you on the floor of the kitchen. So what happened there, Gale? What do we?
I was confused. He said, help when I opened the door from the garage, and I came to his side, and I started trying to ask him questions. He really didn't know the timeline of how long he'd been in the floor, and
just a couple minutes.
But I didn't know. I mean, I'm walking into it, so I had no idea. But I started trying to take his vital signs. I couldn't get any pulse in his arm, but he was talking, and so I knew he was there with me. And I tried to get a pulse everywhere. I couldn't get it in his neck, so I put my Fitbit on him. I know this sounds like a silly thing to do, but I thought, well, my Fitbit will take his pulse, and it didn't take his pulse on either arm. And I thought it was broken, and I put it on my hand, on my arm, and it took my pulse. So I thought, well, that's confusing. And I basically helped him change his shirt. I know this sounds terrible, but Michael is pristine everywhere he goes. So I changed his shirt, and we got him up and took him to the car. He walked to the car. And on the way to the car, he seemed a little unstable, but I got him in, and I thought everything's going to be fine. We got him in the car. It only takes about 5 minutes to get downtown, and I thought we could get him there pretty quickly. So on our drive, he kept apologizing. He kept saying, I'm sorry.
Still sorry today.
I couldn't imagine why are you apologizing? And I realize now that he was not well. He just was apologizing for not being well. And
up until then, I didn't have one doctor visit. No broken arm, no nothing at all.
In your whole life. That's amazing.
It was picture perfect health.
So what I know from this point, you got him to the hospital, you got him in, they found, I mean, you were mortified to find out that they had he had split aorta. Is that part of the reason that they found aorta and even questioned it, other than thinking a heart attack or whatever, was because I couldn't get his pulse with the Fitbit. And when I said this, as the nurse
the nurses and the triage team were in there, I said, I couldn't get my Fitbit to get his pulse. And she switched her discovery mode. She switched. And later the doctor, when they took him to CT scan and got him back, and they said, what did you say about his pulse? What did you say about the Fitbit? Because that changed the trajectory of whatever they were looking for, right. Which is odd. I had no idea. They don't take your pulse anymore at the hospital. Did you know that?
Are you kidding?
No, they put things all over you, and they put a monitor on your finger, but they don't take your pulse anymore. It's a weird thing, but the pulse was something that answered the question of what they were looking for. So that was interesting. Everything was interesting. The nurse that came in was a Marine, a veteran, right. And Michael knew about
the lanyard, yellow and red. So immediately it took, oh, that's a Marine.
That's a Marine. And Michael is always in mode to tell me things about people
military,
historic military items. So he was giving me the lowdown of what this gentleman did in his profession as a Marine. And the nurse was taken with Michael and cared about him immediately. And Michael is that way. He just is wonderful in that respect. People love him.
I know our time's going to be so fast. So I wanted to just move this to where you started calling friends. I know you called Mary Margaret. Mary Margaret called me.
Yes.
You called friends that had just set up a ham radio system in their home. And Susan that had set and was able to, almost immediately, as soon as you were able to broadcast out, there were prayers around the world.
Well, there were, and it was a moment. I did talk to the doctor, and they said, this is a devastating circumstance here. This is very devastating, but we're scrubbing, and we called the team, and they're coming in, and they're going to do this aortic resection. And I was shocked and scared to death. I had no idea what to expect here, except I knew I needed support. Mm-hmm. And I called Susan, and she said, you have God, and we are going to start praying. And I was really calling Susan because her son is a minister, and he could marry us right there. We had our license. We were ready to get married. We had a couple of delays for reasons here and there, but we were ready. And on the way to the hospital, I said, we are getting married today. And people said, okay. And we were just.
So I walked in. Mary Margaret put the word out. I was like, she says, Mary Margaret's in, she said, Michael's in the hospital. It's not good. And so I dropped everything and ran up there.
Yeah. I asked her to pull over while I talked to her, because she loves us, and I didn't want her to be upset and driving and upset. So she said she pulled over, and I had bad news. And I think she must have done a U-turn and come to us. She said she was calling you, and I have Charla, how do you feel about Charla coming? And I said, yes, come on. I knew she would be supportive, and I know she loves us. So I needed to rely on someone to help me. She loves us. So that would be a good person. She has a clear thought process. So her bringing you in was wonderful.
Well, so my perspective of that is I walked in, and I was kind of, we were in the still in the emergency room, right? And I think
right.
And you said, "Are you a minister?" And I was like,
"You always say that."
Well, kind of. And she said, "Are you ordained?" And I was like, "No, no."
And
she said, "Do you know anybody who is?" And miracle of
course you
miracles,
do.
because these were layers of miracles. I mean, it started from her taking him, to the different hospital than she was. I mean, all these layers of miracles are incredible when you really step back and look at the puzzle putting.
And intricately, every single step of the way was miraculous, because we had
no one thing is miraculously a miracle. A series of miracles.
A series of things that continue to present themselves. Like you say, you have a left and a right. If you go left, this is going to, this was all miraculous. Every little piece of this went forward and scared us too,
My dad, so I called my minister, Pastor Reyes, and it was a Sunday night, right? So I called and I was like, hey, this is a situation. I have a couple here, these friends of mine, very close friends. They have their marriage license in hand, and they're in a situation that is pretty, it would be really hard moving forward without, you don't have other family, Michael. You don't have other family members that could have come in and done. It was just Gale.
Just one uncle, that's it.
And so them getting married over the Facebook Live or whatever it was. I'm not live, but Facebook. I think it was.
Proxy.
And getting it was legal. It was all done. It was all pre-planned. And obviously it was all preordained, as we now know. But so we got you married so that Gale could also be responsible for making decisions for you during this time frame. So after that, everybody was just wringing hands and devastated. And I'll let you say your perspective of me, but right then in my remembrance is you said, well, oh my God. And I was like, no, I truly, didn't I do that? I feel like something came over me, and it was, divinely, I'm sure. But I
don't remember it being shocking to me that you yelled at me or anything, but I do remember you saying,
speak what you want, not what you don't want. Don't speak. You speak life, not death. You speak bold faith, no fear. You speak what God says. And you said, but the doctor said, and the science said.
And you said that was the doctor's truth.
That's the doctor's truth. That's not God's truth. And God created those doctors, and God created science.
True.
And I'll jump to the next day and we can come back if there's more there. But the next day I was watching, or it might've been in the middle of the night. We were all there watching an ultrasound on him. And I was the only one in the intensive.
The left and the right.
I watched that heart beating on this ultrasound, and I was like, if God can create it, He can heal it. And I was very clear on, if He can create it, He can heal it. He created you. He created us. Deuteronomy 7:15 and many other places, you shall be free of every disease. And we often let the doubts flood our minds. So to me, much of the miracle is just speaking what you want. It was hard to not, because you actually have to deal with what's so as well. This is a huge piece to it. You have to deal with what's going on and what's so.
Right.
And so
it was all
what was going on. You had to make decisions. You had to do what was going on, but you didn't have. And I said, do not speak anything negative in front of Michael at all. And so who am I to come in and do all that? At the time, I don't know. I mean, you said 2017. Wow. I was thinking it was 18. Okay. But I remember now, I was still in my little house. So
yeah.
Those things I think are probably one of the most critical messages to get a point, because we so often negate our power when we, but the doctor, and and we claim things we don't want. We claim the disease. We claim the angst, or we claim the anxiety. We claim it instead of
give it life
speaking what God wants and says.
We give it life through our voice.
Every word matters. Every word matters. And my last show last week, I talked about that extensively. I mean, speak what you want, to speak life, so then, and then I come back and fill in anything else, but this is my remembrance.
Well,
So one
I
more
wanted
thing.
to say our friend that was in St. Joe had gotten her ham radio license, and she was, when she said, "You have God and I'm going to pray," she was the first person I reached out to. And I do believe miracles happen, right there. And she made her ham radio. She has a prayer group. She went straight to them. And this went up the East Coast, and people were actively praying. And my girlfriend that's down in Mexico at the time, she went right into light a candle at, the altar.
Lindsay.
No, Lucy.
Lucy,
yes. And she went right in and lit a candle and said a prayer. You were praying. Mary Margaret was praying. Jackie Joe was telling us the same thing. And she actually said to visualize the future, where you're going to sit and what you're going to do for your anniversary next year and sit by the pool. These things were helpful because I was listening to you. I was being very careful of what I said. I tried to be very careful, and I try not to give it any life to any fear. But I did see fear. It wasn't like fear wasn't there. We were afraid.
We were terrified.
We were terrified. You were terrified, but you didn't
speak it.
Say it.
We didn't claim it. I'll say it that way. We didn't claim the terror. We claimed bold faith, no fear. And because who I say I am, and had said for many years, who I am is bold faith, no fear. It came naturally, I suppose, to speak it like that. And the biggest piece that I remember, I think it was 2 days after, so maybe Tuesday or something, we remember that we found out that Marine recused himself, that Marine nurse recused himself from that case because Michael, Miracle Michael, we call him now, he always has, had a less than 1% chance to survive till Monday morning. Less than 1% chance to survive till Monday morning. And with every doctor, every person that showed up on Monday was shot.
The doctor says maybe Tuesday, Dr. Lynn, you're still here? Oh, that's good.
Well, we did leave out something major.
Oh. I just thought about that, the stroke.
Yeah.
The stroke happened.
I just thought about that too.
They stopped completely scrubbing.
Never mind.
Had to explain to me why they couldn't go forward, which was devastating.
The body was too weak to understand the stroke.
Right.
After my stroke.
The brain, after a brain event where you have bleeding in the brain, you can't intubate, no one can go on life support after that. I had no idea. You think all the time that life support is, for everyone. You can go to the life support if you need to, but you can't. Not with the heart event and a brain event at the same time. So, of course, I asked, and he said, if we can't do the surgery, because if we were to do the surgery, he would stroke out and die. And I said, if he goes into distress tonight, we will have to let him go. And I said, no, you will not let him go. And I remember saying, you will not let him go.
And that was before I got there too. I didn't.
And he said that we wouldn't be able to save him. And it was just, that part was devastating. I didn't know how to convey that to you without saying it. So I'm glad you stopped me from saying it. But that was devastating. I was very terrified.
So when that was huge. That was a huge piece that we kind of just glossed over a few minutes ago, because when I walked in, he had already had a stroke. They'd already decided he couldn't have surgery, and he was sitting up and able to speak, but partially paralyzed, I guess, on one side. And it just truly was, they stopped the surgery because of that. He was stroking, and that certainly exacerbated the whole thing. And I believe that's probably more when the nurse,
when the Marine
recruised himself, because
he did. I asked him, "Can you give him the stroke medication?" And they said no.
No, too late.
That's when he left, because he realized that he was having a stroke and he might not make it. Mm-hmm. So he just was too upset. He was too upset to continue. But we saw him again, and he was happy to see us.
I bet.
As a matter of fact, because they couldn't do the surgery, Michael had to go into a whole different situation. He had to go into the ICU unit, and
for 3 days. And
they kept saying that he it was possible that he was a DNR, which was something I told him not to say again in that room. Don't say this in this room. And
that means do not resuscitate. So
right.
For those that don't know that, I certainly know.
And someone came into palliative care, and I asked him to leave because I did not want to talk about this in front of Michael.
We weren't claiming it. You weren't claiming it on your own, right before in all of the beginnings. So.
Well, it took some propping up. Thank you very much. Took some propping up, and you were there actually when palliative care was there, and that was that night before the echocardiogram started, and then they did the carotid arteries, and I still to this ask his doctor how he is so vibrant without his carotid arteries. How is that? Because one side was 100% occluded and one side was 65% occluded. So this is a miracle right here. He is a miracle. But his doctors have explained it to me that he has 2 veins in the back of his spine that took over as his carotid artery. Why is that? That is
God can create it. He can heal it. He can.
That's because he's a miracle.
He can find a way.
There are
ways.
This
isn't about religion at all. This is about bold faith. This is about hope and healing. And can I ask you? This is, I guess, personal, but it's all personal. But before that day, how strong was your faith?
We knew that we both believed. We knew that we both had faith, but we never prayed together and since then we do all the time, every day. We pray together.
Every single night.
Yes, we pray together every day.
It gives me chills because I know the truth of you guys is beyond measure.
Well, for the most part, for the first 6 or 8 months, you led the prayer. But ever since then, well, we prayed together, but mostly our prayer, my prayer. But every night, thank God for one more day.
That's right. And I thought that was miraculous of him. What a brilliant thing to say. Thank you, Lord, for one more day. It's not for tomorrow. It's for today. Thank you for
maybe not tomorrow, but today is, yes.
But the brilliant part of it to me is that it might mean tomorrow, but it does mean today. It means thank you for today. And
not tomorrow.
You don't always have tomorrow. And we knew that then. We prayed together. We had another friend the friend in the rural area, Susan, she sent Netta, and Netta called Pastor Joseph. Pastor Joseph came in day 2. And he said, brother, do you want to live?
That's right.
Or do you want to die? And Michael said, I want to live. And he said, do you want to pray? And Michael said, yes, I want to pray. Okay. So we started praying. Mm-hmm. So that was our praying life that began that day. And well, it began the day of his stroke too, because there we were all praying. But
so we're coming towards the end of our time, and we'll bring in Mary Margaret. I hope she's here. And
she's here.
Okay, cool. And the recovery. So it was like 3 days of total unknown and all that. And then we started feeling hope and miracle stories. I mean, realizing the miracles were manifesting and working in that whole situation. And you have had now almost 7 years. Oh my goodness, of healing and recovery and creating your lives as they are now. And there's
6 years.
Is it? Okay. I keep forgetting. Okay. So one of the ways of dealing with each other, there's been a learning curve, because after a stroke, you had some residual issues, right, Michael? And
it's still today, but it's a lot better than.
What's the hardest part?
Well, I have aphasia. So aphasia means the intellect and intelligence is in my head, but not out my mouth right now. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good.
So it's harder to bring those words that you have in your heads to fruition. Okay.
Especially my college career was undergraduate for speech communication. I really don't understand engineering, but I do apply English. But
so the words are the hardest part right now. You're just right now, you've got something you want to say and it's hard to come out. So can I call you out on something? I mean, this is live TV, right? So you just said, I have it. What if but what if we quit claiming it? Just like we quit claiming that there was some, we quit claiming it. We claim what we want, not what we don't want. I speak perfectly, beautifully, and it is what's so. You deal with it.
Didn't have a stroke either. Didn't have a stroke.
But it's a similar. I mean, it's not as life or death situation as we were in with you, but just a thought.
Sorry.
And because sometimes we don't hear ourselves, right? Sometimes we don't. We need accountability a little bit to just food for a thought. Maybe I hadn't thought of it that way. And so Gale, we brushed through a lot of it. It is time for us to bring in the rest of bring in Mary Margaret for sure in just a moment. But tell me where you are now and your and if we missed anything you really wanted to say.
Well, I feel like I wanted to say they sent you home after how long? 2 weeks in the hospital.
30 days.
I had
14
I had
days.
to keep him alive because he is a strong man who likes to pick things up that are 100 pounds. And I knew any one of those mishaps could happen during that time. And I had to keep him alive to have the surgery in 6 or 8 weeks.
No, 10 weeks. From 17 March to 15 May.
My challenge was turning from that sweet girlfriend who never bossed anybody around to sort of bossing him around a little bit, because I would turn around, literally, he would have 100-pound something picked up in midair, and I would say, put it down.
No, put it down.
Aren't you glad she did? Aren't you glad
yes.
she has your back, and y'all have just evolved into the sweetest couple, and you're so fun, and you always were, but oh my gosh, our hearts are so blessed and warm with you. We
did have a pre-surgery party, and you were there. We had friends, Mary Margaret. It was sort of a round table. I can't recall what we had to eat, but a lot of our friends that we knew were, Michael calls the
usual suspects.
Usual suspects was the name of the group. That's right.
The usual suspects. And a lot of the group was there for the dinner, and we're going to repeat that as many times as we can. You know, we love everyone that was a part of our healing, and thank you for being there together and holding my tongue and helping me stand still and pray, because prayer is so important. And it's not that you're going to always expect God to answer the prayer, but because it is his will, because sometimes prayer is not the answer. Everybody does the prayer, everybody prays, but their prayer is not always answered. It is God's will. So we knew, didn't we, that Michael had more to do in his life. We knew that God had favored him and that he had more for him, more plans.
So I'm believing that you have a bold faith and a bold faith prayer that Michael's speech will be completely, fully recovered. And if anyone, all you guys out there that are prayers, and I want to, I'll just interject something that I ran across in my mind. I guess it was downloaded, that thank you is the best prayer we can ever have. And if we say thank you and we can see the future of what we want, thank you that it's already done, is one of the best prayers we can pray. Yes, Michael.
I had my incident on Sunday afternoon. I didn't remember Monday at all, but on Tuesday, for the first 3 or 4 days, I can only say thank you. Anything else is not really, but thank you. Just thank you.
Constant mantra. And I'm telling you, there's a quote somewhere that says, if you say thank you, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, it's enough. So I that's kind of a cool ending to our time of this time right now, because if you just said thank you and you were so grateful to be alive and to be a part of our family still. And I've never heard of anybody that didn't just adore you and adore Gale, and you are loved beyond measure, and you're a walking and talking miracle. And the story, everybody right now, it feels like so many people need help, hope, healing, hope. And a lot of us need healing. So I hope this story generates amazing hope for the people that listen, and that they'll maybe will even share it, because this is a big story to me, and it's part of our lives. We lived it. And so really, we're just going to kind of close this part of it, and I'm going to open up to Mary Margaret to come on. And I'm grateful for everyone that came. And if you have a miracle story that you want to tell, email Charla at charlaanderson.com. I feel like we need hope, and I'm a clearing for miracles. Someone gave that to me in 2007, and I said I received that. If you can take a deep breath, I believe it's a miracle. So that is the end of this portion. And please stay tuned as we get Miss Mary Margaret on, and whoever else perhaps wants to come on. I better get my glasses back out for this part. And I'm excited. I see Mary Margaret. Okay. Are you unmuted?
Hey, unmuted.
Awesome. Thank you. So Mary Margaret, we are miracles from day one. our friendship. So she's a real estate agent and owns Mary Margaret Davis Realty.com or whatever it is. It's a beautiful business, and you're welcome to speak that clearly. Who are you, Mary Margaret?
Oh, I'm ex next door neighbor to Michael Parker, and I'm the introducer matchmaker of Gale Cavaness Parker and Michael Parker. And my husband Grant still pouts when he realizes that Michael no longer lives next door because they were such good friends. Right. And the evening of the event, Charla called me and she said, "Are you sitting down?" And I've heard that saying, but no one's ever said it to me.
Gale
really.
Called you. Gale called you.
Was it? I thought it was you. Okay, no, I called you.
You called me.
Right.
Yeah.
Gale said,
but it was a confusing day.
Yes.
For sure.
And it was, it wasn't late, but it was semi-bedtime in my world. And
evening.
So I took off and came down to the hospital. And I don't know, I wasn't here on the whole call, but at least in my experience, my cousin Lisa came and we all supported Michael. He was in the cardiac floor at Harris downtown. And prior to that, I'll always remember in Gale's story that as she realized there was a problem and headed to Harris Southwest, and Michael said, "I recognize that building." And it was the Texas and Pacific Lofts train station building. And she turned off on Henderson right then because he would obviously know that building, and every car that they passed or came by, he would have a story about it, and just such the steel trap mind. And by the time I got there, everything had already happened, and we mostly were supporting him on the cardiac floor. And I remember the next morning early, he was shaving with his electric shaver, so he still had all the automatic things. And we were all just sitting in his room visiting. And then I came out to the area, the circular hallway, and I saw Nancy Mitchell, who has a pet walking service. So I had never seen her as her real job, the RN position. And she was the release nurse for rehab or home on that cardiac ICU type floor. And so I came into her vision and said hello. And she realized who I was there for. And she got this really sad, her eyes turned down at the corners, and she said, "You won't be needing me." Literally said that to me. And there was only one way to interpret that. And when I came back to Michael's room, and he didn't realize, but he was standing up and they were changing his bed, and his little gown was all open in the back right to the door. And I'm like, well, maybe
it's too late now. It's too late now. It's too late now.
But Gale and I at a point walked out to the nurse's stand to ask a question, and the doctor, maybe the surgeon, was facing away from us at his computer, and Gale had asked a question about his stroke or whatever. And that doctor, not knowing we were standing there, said, "Oh yeah, it's a big old stroke." So I think in a lot of ways, they basically didn't expect him to leave that room, but he was, he didn't have any noticeable physical paralysis. And of course, we were there during the time later when the surgery was occurring after his scar tissue grew, for them to have something to suture the new part of his aorta to. And the preacher was there waiting, and we got to hear stories about his life and about how he stood up to a tornado right in the middle of his street and told it to go away, standing there in his underwear, and just really powerful prayer people there. And we got to watch the board and kept seeing that he was still in surgery and all of those things. But I was so glad that I could be there and that it worked out. And you went to that beautiful historic rehab facility for a time off on Lancaster, which they're no longer there anymore. But even the place where you were was such a prayerful feeling place to me. And then, of course, Gale stole him from our next door neighbor, and we're still friends, but Grant still pouts. But I tell the stories. Probably it's kind of like when your little sister has heart surgery when she's 3, and every time we get around anybody that doesn't know, we ask Martha to pull up her shirt to show her scar. And so we're all, I mean, she was 5, 6 years old. But it's like, why don't we tell Michael's story again for the umpteenth time? But he's been very patient about that because he's aware that this is a miracle.
Very much so.
Oh, this whole little group that we formed when I met you in 2009, I think it was, at the TMP Lofts. We became immediate best friends and just have been that way ever since. I mean, it's just one of those miraculous formations of friendships. Who knew? And then I lived in the building, and you sold all the condos, and
me too.
Gale did too. That's right.
But you didn't. Neither one of y'all lived in the building, but I got to live there, and it was amazing. And no, this was a. Both of y'all are amazing in your positions as realtors, and what we knew Michael to be is a Navy and Marine and Lockheed and all these really high level positions. But he was the life of the party. He was included in everything. And because Mary Margaret was right next door to him, they would, they were coming together. But the miracles never cease. In my estimation, Michael and Gale will be living infamy in this time, because I guarantee you those doctors, those nurses, that Marine, all of those people will tell this story throughout time. And perhaps there'll be a time we'll get it into a book, because miracles are needed, and miracles are everywhere. And when we take a moment to feel them, to see them, to live them, we help others. It lifts the rest of the world. So I appreciate all of you, every one of you. Appreciate anybody who came on as our guests. We still, and who will listen to it in the future.
Well, Charla, just 1 second. I want to acknowledge you for knowing how to boldly pray, and how you taught us some things that we didn't know, and continue to teach us about how to boldly go beyond what we can see or feel, and how to leave it up and pass it up to the one that is the miracle maker. And I really appreciate and love you for that.
Yes, we love you.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. But I didn't, do you remember when it wasn't me that was there? But I was a vessel at the moment, right? When you open to receive, it's amazing what can show up. And I've witnessed miracle after miracle. Mary Margaret's witnessed a whole lot of them with me about housing and different things just in our daily lives. And things that are totally unexplainable, like I'm in favor. And we're just in favor because we choose to stand on what God says, not what on the world says. And we choose to he says, you shall be free of every disease. He says, you shall be abundant. All of the things that are the promises. And this isn't religion, by the way. There's not an ounce of religion in this conversation. This is relationship. This is relationships. This is people loving people, and people serving people, and people listening to their higher self, our God. And so I sometimes people think it's religion when you talk this way, but it's not, in my estimation anyway. It's just love, unconditional love. It's infinite love. It's the hope for the hopeless. And speaking what you want, not what you don't want. I'll never stop saying that. It's my theme. It's such a running theme. And I was given, trying to figure out where this show is going and how, the 7th show today already. I can't even believe that. First guest. And I'm so grateful for Michael and Gale to have said yes. When intriguing opportunities present themselves and you say yes, things show up. So that's what we've done here. And you've shown up, and you've shown up beautifully, and you've told your story. And Mary Margaret, who is such
everybody has
Miracle Mary Margaret too, right? So we got Miracle Micro. It's been,
she knows everybody.
Yeah, she does.
Mary Margaret knows everyone.
Certainly in the DFW Fort Worth area for sure, and probably Texas and maybe the world. I don't know. Now the world.
And Snyder.
Snyder. And I see some other folks on here, Janie and Kelly, and I don't have my whole list up, but I
love you and love the story of hope and continuous working with the divine light and sharing it always. Thank you, Charla. You're a light in yourself. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Janie. Love you. Kelly, gotta want to speak up. You're one of the usual. You were kind of one of the usual suspects, weren't you? And maybe I don't know. She's even. Oh, hey, Kelly.
Hello.
Weren't you one of the usual suspects?
You're on mute.
Mute.
She has to find unmute.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, there we are. Okay, I love the story. Love seeing you guys. Hi Mary, Margaret, and Charla, your show. I support you all the time, honey.
I know you do. Love you much.
Love you back.
So we'll just wrap this up, I suppose, unless someone has a big burning desire to.
I'm good.
All good. Okay. So every Wednesday on winwinwomen.tv and on Podetize globally coming soon. Well, Win Win Women is global. It's on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. I believe even as we speak today. I don't know how to use those things, but hopefully it's there. And who knows where we're going with this. And I love telling the stories, and I think having guests is more fun than just me being a talking head. So
well, you're going to have a hard time topping this one, Charla.
That is for sure. I started with the big one, the big.
Yes.
There, we live this miracle so strongly, and I appreciate that each of you that listen to this take a moment to just be centered, listen to your spirit, listen to your soul, listen to your heart, and get clear. And gratitude, of course, when Michael was saying thank you, it was the only thing he could say. Gratitude is literally the key to everything else in your life. So and as I always end, by the way, every week, Wednesdays, 1:00 Central Time, join me. And it's on my website, charlaanderson.com will be all the replays as I finish editing things. So there's that. But I'm grateful again to each of you. And Gale and Michael,
thank you.
I believe there's nothing but huge favor in your future, and that the experience of telling the story again in a more public setting is going to exponentially increase your work, your mission, the reason you're here. So
thank you, Charla.
I love you so much. And I'm going to
thank you, Mary.
It off.
Hey guys. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
And always remember, I got to end this way. Choose joy.
All the words you say matter.
Every word matters. Choose joy. So I'm going to end you now. Blessings.
Bye.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Parting is such sweet sorrow. The Charla Anderson Show. Encouraging you to stand strong and courageous with bold faith, no fear, immense hope, kindness, and love, especially towards yourself. Visit charlaanderson.com for replays, blogs, and more on her ever-expanding website, as well as watch her live TV show on winwinwomen.tv, Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And so that we can continue learning together and growing this community of beautiful souls, we invite you to share the Charla Anderson Show with your circle of friends. Until we meet again next week, remember always, choose joy.